portion of this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, March 10th, 2020.
And I will call this meeting of the ED Committee as part of this joint committee meeting to order. Record will show all members are present.
Okay. The items that we have on our agenda tonight, items 1 through 5, are kind of all interrelated. They all are project plan amendments for tax increment districts 3, 6, 7, 8, and 12. And the Economic Development Committee had a presentation on this last week. It opted to hold action at that time so that we could act together as two committees on these items, just based on the late date that information was received in the ED committee. There was a lengthy presentation that had to be prepared, and they didn't want to act on it, within one day of public notice. So that's why we have both committees together tonight. A lot of the items, according to the presentation, are largely housekeeping type items with district boundaries. So I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ann, and for the Finance Committee's benefit, if you could walk us through all 5 of these changes.
Sure. So I think the reoccurring theme on the project plan amendments is that the state law says that only full parcels can be included in a district boundary. So you can't have partial parcels. And this year, we have a number of developments underway where developers are taking multiple parcels and wanting to combine them into one parcel. And it just so happens that some of these parcels are in the district, in a tax increment districts, and some of them are outside a tax increment district. So to stay in compliance with the law, we either need to bring those that are outside in, or take those that are inside and move them out. And we've done a combination of that throughout our planning. So the first one, and there is a PowerPoint, so we've got in your packet were the actual plan amendments, a memo that summarized what we were trying to accomplish, and then a little PowerPoint presentation too.
Do we want to put that up on the screen?
We could.
Yeah, we want to call it up. Yeah, let's put it up
Okay.
for public view.
It looks so old. Place this one, I think. Do we want to turn that screen on, or can we not do it until the computer's up? Hopefully I'll remember where I put it. Edge of their seats.
I think what we'll do too is we'll have one presentation, and then as each committee, we'll vote on each of those tax increment district amendments separately. So we'll take 5 votes, but we'll have her run through the PowerPoint for all of them at once, and then we can knock out all the votes then at the end.
I was really hoping it was going to just come up. Okay.
There we go. And we're up, okay.
So it's not quite as nice as if it was PowerPoint. But so the first amendment is tax increment district number 3. This is amendment number 5, but it is only the third amendment where we're doing property boundary changes. So the rest of them were other kinds of amendments. So the parcel that's in question is this block that you can see down at the bottom of the picture. The green area is currently included in tax increment district number 3. The area that's not in green is not included. And what they're trying to do is combine with the vacation of the road, which was in tax increment district number 3, and these other parcels, it produces areas that are in and outside the district. So our amendment would bring these in the district so that they would be full parcels. But there's no other proposed changes to tax increment district 3, just the boundary change.
Okay. Sure,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Since this one is a blight district, and you know the law might have changed in the last 20 years, so please forgive me if it did, has someone checked to make sure that with bringing this parcel in, you know, we have a blight ratio that
Yes.
meets the definition of the law?
Yes.
Okay,
And
thank you.
we also sent notification to the property owners as required. Yep. Yep. So then, that's a pretty simple change, that most of these changes are very simple. In tax increment district number 6, again, this map is a little smaller. It's over by, you can see 17th Avenue is right here. This is where Walgreens is, over here, and Abbey Bank, Starbucks, that little retail section. So this one parcel, there used to be a metal building on it, which was torn down a while ago. The proposal of the owner of the property is for the city to vacate 18th Avenue so that they can adjoin that with this vacant parcel and create a larger development parcel, and then we would reconstruct this short little block of 18th Avenue north of this joined property, and they would be donating that land to us for that street reconstruction. So in this situation, again, that one parcel was in the district, the street was not in the district, so for those to be combined, we either need to add them to the district or remove them from the district. And in this one, we're recommending that we would remove them from the district. This district's expenditure period TID 6 ends in May of this year, so our recommendation is to remove the parcel.
Okay.
In TID 7, and in TID 6, there would be no other changes to the project plan. In TID 7, this is out where ENT, Menards, those developments out in TID 7. So in this map, you can see we're adding and subtracting. So the red areas that are highlighted, we would be subtracting from the district. The green areas, we would be adding to the district. So this parcel that's down at the bottom of the map, that is a sole parcel that is owned by Menards, but it falls outside the district. Menards has the desire to combine all of their parcels together, so we would remove that parcel from the district so that they would have that freedom to combine those parcels. Up here, this is actually the fire station, and we are just, since we're kind of tidying things up, this had a parcel that was in the district and outside the district, so removing this would allow that to be a single parcel. This basically up here is right-of-way, and so we're removing that, as well as this little slice here. Again, trying to achieve, because the developers are combining some parcels, that little red slice got combined with this white parcel right here, and then this green, these two green parcels, adding them again, to fulfill the requirements so that we have full parcels. In TID 7, in addition to these minor boundary changes, we also are adding project costs. Now, TID 7's, the end of its expenditure period is January of 2021. So this is really the last, what I would call it, construction season for the district. And we would like to add some street improvement projects, which are highlighted in this map here. They fall within the boundaries and in the half-mile boundary, so we have designated improvements in both areas. It's concrete improvements, pavement improvements. Within the project plan amendment 1, because this is the second amendment for Tax Increment District 7, we did outline that we were going to be making streetscape improvements within the half mile, but I identified them as Stewart Avenue, which really was a misnomer. I should have identified them as Highway 52 Parkway. So we've corrected that error in our project plan amendment to just identifying them correctly. So it's not new expenses to the project plan, it's just identifying the expense correctly. And then we also have $100,000 for parking improvements in, what's the park called out there? Brockmeyer Park, related to JoJo's Jungle.
Okay.
So those are the changes to Tax Increment District number 7. Tax Increment District number 8 is the near west side district, and you can see we have up here on the north side of the district is a small block. Here again, a developer is interested in taking that block and making it one parcel. We're recommending that we add that to the district. And then down here, if you recall, Mountain Lanes is being redeveloped into residential, and you signed a developer's agreement with them indicating that we would make developer payments contingent on the project plan amendment of TID 8. So to get up there, we basically have taken tax exempt parcels to get there. So we've, there's a number of churches that are located along the south side of Stewart Avenue, as is Marathon Park, the Highway Department, and then we go up to John Muir, all the way up to Mountain Lanes. This is a conservation rehabilitation district, so we comply with the rules and we sent out letters as required by state statute. So this district, in addition to adding territory, would add expenses. So if you recall, when we were talking about Tax Increment District number 6, we said we would be reconstructing 18th Avenue. Now, as I said, TID 6, the expenditure period ends this summer, May of 2020. So we would like to do 18th Avenue's reconstruction in TID 8 within the half-mile boundary. So the project plan has that project listed within the half-mile boundary and a budget of $300,000. And then also the $601,520 for the reverse TID project for Mountain Lanes. So those are the expenses for Tax Increment District number 8. And then TID 12. TID 12 is located in the downtown, and it follows north along the river. And TID 12 and TID 3 are overlay. TID 12 becomes an overlay district to TID 3 in a number of locations. And so, when we put TID 12 together in 2017, we were trying to anticipate some of the needs that we thought we were going to have in this area. Now, some of those needs are more well-formulated. This red that would be coming out of TID 12 is Great Lakes Cheese, the properties that they donated to us. It's already in TID 3. We have a better idea of what the needs are, and our recommendation is that TID 3 would manage that redevelopment, and we would take it out of TID 12, because you really are only getting benefit to one district, and this would help with that. So that would be parcels that we would remove. And then we have a number of other parcels that we would remove. If you recall, when we were looking at TID 3 as it pertained to the Aspirus development, this is the Grable building right here, and it is included in both TID 12 and TID 3, and it makes it way too complicated, again, because we're trying to only deal with full parcels, so we're taking this out of TID 12, along with another parcel that's being redeveloped by the YMCA to maintain contiguous parcels, which is another rule. We are adding these two small parcels that are highlighted in green. And then further down, we're taking out the landmark building. The CDA is working on redevelopment of that parcel, and so it's not requiring any TIF financing, so we're taking those out, as well as the 400 block, and kind of hopping and getting the rest of the parcels that were contiguous. And then we're taking Sears out. Again, right now, that's creating a deficit situation for the district because it had a value when the district was created. Of course, now that the city owns it, it has a zero value. So to get rid of that negative increment, we're suggesting we remove that from the district. So those are the changes that we're making to TID 12. Again, all of them are removals except for these two tiny parcels, which we would have to add to make sure that the map stayed contiguous, and we're not adding any additional project costs to the district.
Okay. Part of the discussion that we had in economic development also is when we looked at the couple of districts that had infrastructure projects added while their expenditure periods were still open. We discussed the fact that that was a positive because that really allows then all taxing jurisdictions to share in the cost of those infrastructure projects versus the city incurring development debt or revenue bonds on their own to pay for those infrastructure projects, which is what would happen if those projects were not in TID districts. So those projects were a positive. We also talked about parcels that are removed from tax increment districts if they don't remain in other tax increment districts. So the overlay with 3 and 12 is a little bit different if the parcels are staying in 3. But for the land that we remove from the other ones where there is no overlay situation, those parcels return their taxable dollars, assuming they're tax-paying properties. Those tax revenue dollars would go immediately into the general fund levy and not sit in the TID any longer. Is that?
That's correct.
Correct, okay.
And then on council's agenda tonight is the closure of TID 5.
Yes.
Which-
And that's a serious positive.
Yes, and all of these changes, given the timetable that we're in, the changes become effective January 1 of 2020, including the, the closure would be for January 2020. Did I say January 2021? I meant January 2020. So they would become effective back to the January.
At the start of the year.
Yes, and
Okay.
so for example, for TID 5's closure, when we're doing our budget in the fall of 2020, that district will no longer receive an increment. The schools, the county, the technical college, when they're doing their 2021 budgets, will get the benefit of
Yep.
that
They can expect
closed district. Yes.
income from that growth, and our
Yes.
general fund will as well.
Yep.
Okay, and I know we have a couple other closures on the horizon in the next few years as well, that taxpayers can look forward to. So with that, I think we're equipped to act on these. I think as two committees, we'll just take turns and vote on them one by one. Item number 1, discussion and possible action regarding a project plan amendment number 4 for tax increment district number 3. Is there a motion from the Finance Committee to approve? We have a motion by Nutting. Is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion from Finance? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries.
Thank you. Now, the ED Committee, we will vote on item number 1, the proposed project plan amendment for tax increment District 3. Do I have a motion to approve? By Mr. Gissel, do I have a second? Mr. Peckham, further discussion? I have one question on this. because this, if we could have that back up on the screen, that'd be good. The first one there, item 3, District 3. Aspirus, the new Aspirus Clinic is in that location. And as you recall, when we addressed the proposed project, a long time ago, we talked about the taxability of the clinic, and we wanted to ensure that it was taxable. And we received promise from Aspirus reps that it would indeed be a taxable property, not like a hospital and non-taxable. As it was to be located, then wouldn't it be immediately taxable and applicable to our general fund? And doing this will put it into more of an increment situation.
Right, so if you look at that, and you can't really see, but part of that is in TID 12 too, these hash marks, like, well, you can see the notation right here. So this is all TID 12, this is TID 12 up here, as is this all the way around here. So, and they want to combine this parcel, and make this one big parcel. So it created a problem for us because it was partially in TID 12, partially in TID 3, and partially outside the district. So as we looked at it, it was really kind of complicated to try to get it in where there were whole parcels in one specific district. So that's why we removed all of TID 12 from around here. But as you point out, we did add this to TID 3 so that the increment gained would go to the district.
Okay, and so the parcels that we see there that are all proposed Aspirus ownership, both the clinic building and the parking lot, those are taxable properties to Aspirus as clinic property. The YMCA's parking lot, though,
Yes.
the YMCA is tax exempt,
My
isn't it?
understanding is this is tax exempt.
Yes.
This is taxable.
Yes.
And this all will be taxable.
Right, so the
And this
clinic's
is already
portion.
in the district, so this
Yep.
is the portion that we're adding that.
That pays tax.
Pays tax. This portion we're adding that pays no tax, but again, with the parcels, and it's a little hard to see, but there's this change of making these cannot take place until the TID boundaries are changed, and you can't see it now, but this parcel actually jigs up and goes like this, so we need to make the change before they can actually combine these parcels.
And finish their project.
Right, and
Okay.
so we couldn't not include this parcel. They had to both be included,
Okay.
otherwise they would have been prevented because of this little slice of property right here.
Okay.
Or we'd have to go through basically 2 amendments.
Okay.
And of course, we can only have so many property amendments, so it was kind of a cluster.
Makes
frankly.
sense to do it once then.
And what is the closure date for District 3?
2031 would be the mandated closure date.
Okay.
We did determine that 3 is closing before 12,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So it had the shorter life?
Yes, it's 12 years.
Okay, good.
Anything else from the committee? All right, hearing none. All in favor of the proposed amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? And none are. All right, thank you.
Okay. Agenda item number 2, discussion and possible action regarding the project plan amendment 5 for tax increment district number 6. Do we have a motion from the Finance Committee to approve that item? Motion by Nutting, is there a second? Second by Lawrence. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, finance approved.
I will take a motion on the same proposal for District 6. Do I have a motion? Mr. Martins, do I have a second? Mr. Peckham. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Okay. Item number 3, discussion and possible action regarding the project plan amendment number 2 for tax increment district number 7. Is there a motion from Finance to approve? Motion by Lawrence, is there a second? Second by Nutting. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries.
And from the ED Committee, I welcome a motion on District 7 proposal.
So moved.
A second, please. Mr. Peckham, thank you. Further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Item number 4 is discussion and possible action regarding the project plan amendment number 2 to tax increment district number 8. Do we have a motion from finance to approve that item? Motion by Martins, is there a second? Second by Nutting. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries.
And a motion from ED on item 4 regarding District 8. Mr. Peckham, second, please. Mr. Gisselman, further discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Item number 5 is discussion and possible action regarding the project plan amendment number 1 to tax increment district number 12. Is there a motion from finance to approve? Motion by Lawrence, is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, motion carries.
And a motion on item 5 regarding District 12, please. Mr. Peckham, do I have a second? Mr. Gisselman, thank you. Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. At this time, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the Economic Development Committee. Mr. Peckham, second, please. Mr. Martins, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, and so then the Finance Committee will continue on its own with its own agenda. This is our regularly scheduled meeting time. The first item on the Finance agenda is the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting, 2/5 of 2020, copies of which are in the packets. Any corrections or revisions to the minutes needed? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes? A motion by Nutting, is there a second? Second by Lawrence. Further discussion? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, the minutes are approved. Item number 2 is discussion and possible action regarding submission of an application for the Transit Capital Assistance Funds under the VW Mitigation Program. You've got some information in your packets. We also have Transit Director Seubert with us in the room tonight. This would authorize him to pursue grant funding from the VW Mitigation Program. Does anyone have questions for the Transit Director or the Finance Director? If not, is there a motion from the Finance Committee to approve the submission of the fund request? Motion by Nutting, is there a second? Second by Lawrence. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries. Item number 3, discussion and possible action regarding a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of $5,120,000 in water system and sewer system revenue bond anticipation notes, Series 2020A. Mary Ann, if you want to walk us through that one?
I apologize. So, the stock market, of course, has implications on the bond market, too. And so with all of the craziness that's going on with the stock market right now, today was an interesting day to issue debt. So I've been waiting for the resolutions and for our sale date memo to come from our financial advisors, and it just came. So I don't have a handout for you, but I do have good news. So when you authorize the resolution, the preliminary resolution, of course, we were looking to refinance the existing debt. There was going to be associated debt issuance costs. And so when we looked at the sources and uses of funds, we thought need to borrow $5,120,000. Because of the great rates we got and we received only one bid, and that was from Huntington Securities. But the bid came in so that we will only need to borrow $5,105,000, so we're saving about $15,000 of principal, and the true interest rate is 1.16%. Now, that's for 6 years. The debt that we're retiring is a 2-year issue, and it was at 2.57%. So,
Wow.
we got a really good rate.
That's great
So
news.
our financial advisor is recommending, even though we only received one bid, that we take that bid and run with it. So he will be bringing his sale date reports, or we will be printing them off, but Phil is coming to the meeting tonight. But
Now,
that's
this
why
is the
we were in a
refinance that
little-
we expect to also refinance to the state funds once those loans close, correct?
Correct.
This was the
Yes.
bridge financing in
Yes.
between?
Yes.
Okay, just so we're clear on that.
Yep,
that
for the water and
This
sewer
was part of the
system.
design costs and the.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so with that, that is fantastic news. Do we have a motion to approve item 3? To accept that offer and run with it. Motion by Lawrence, is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. Item number 4, discussion and possible action regarding MuniCode's full-service supplementation services to host and codify the City of Wausau's municipal code. This item, I think we held action on at our last meeting. Alderman Smith had some questions on that, and I think we held that, and did we also hold over the, there was one other item that we had held over, because we had some questions on those items. Alder Smith had those questions, though, and he's not with us tonight, he's out sick.
Do you remember what the questions were?
Okay, oh, that's right, okay, so the fund source to pay for the MuniCode services, I think is what he was questioning.
So what we're recommending, the cost, one of the things that MuniCode was going to do was go through our entire code and look for conflicts, outdated provisions, so basically doing a legal review. So my recommendation, and that cost was the $7,750. So my recommendation is we just take that out of the legal budget of the legal department, because it's legal review. And then the $1,000 one time to convert all of the data, and the $1195 of just the annual cost would come out of our professional services budget.
Okay,
So that's what we're recommending
All
to
right.
come from. And it's in city promotions, but that's, if we ever hire a consultant, that's where we take it out of.
okay, all right. So that makes sense. I think last time when the questions came up, you were out sick, and now tonight
was
we have
out
the
sick.
answers, and Dennis Smith is out sick as well. Committee members, are you comfortable, though, in voting on this item tonight? Okay, is there a motion then to approve the MuniCode? Go ahead.
Just in terms of a decision to take 7750 out of legal, which makes total sense, any idea where, like contracted services, that we expect to use less than, because we don't have pots of money sitting around?
So I
So-
think the legal budget is a bit of, we try to have sufficient funds in there, because as you point out, you don't know if you're going to need extra legal services. So could it happen that by the end of the year, we might not have sufficient funds in there? That could happen. I think based on current trends, we're not experiencing, heavy use in the legal department's legal services. They returned money in 2019 in that area, so I think
Well, it
that
appears
our
our
risk
trend is
is
that we're
low.
involved in fewer lawsuits
Right.
than we ever have been, so that's a plus. I mean, you never know when someone's going to change that statistic, but for now, it's getting much better. Okay, so we have a motion by Lawrence to approve. Do we have a second? Second by Nutting. Further discussion or questions? Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed. That motion carries. Item number 5 is discussion and possible action on approving the 2020 Community Development Block Grant allocation, the 2020 Action Plan, and the 2020 to 2024 Consolidated Plan. And in the packets, you'll see the work of the Block Grant Committee. Does Does anybody have questions about those allocations or the process that they go through to come up with those? Go ahead, Pat.
I don't have a question, but I know that, I noted that Mr. Bolkin, the committee chair, is here with us. If anybody did have any questions, I participated in the process. We got through it without bloodshed, and I think we have a good outcome, and I hope it's approved.
Okay. All right, with that, and every year, we find that we follow the recommendation of the Citizen Committee because they do go through a arduous and painstaking process to come to those choices. And in the past, it's been difficult. I mean, there's always more need than there's money. And so they do a good job, though, of making sure that the projects they fund are showing results and that they're not funding them cyclically forever, and always looking for new things that they can support and get going. So with that, do we have a motion from Finance then to approve the block grant allocations?
So moved.
Motion by Nutting, is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries as well. Item number 6, discussion and possible action on approving a budget modification for special event staffing for $135,000. I guess I'll start by saying, and we've got the police chief here with us. The Public Health and Safety Committee had a discussion at its last meeting about the proper staffing level for special events. We've got some special events, and it's a great problem to have, are so wildly popular that they're drawing crowds in excess of, 10,000 plus. And I think responding to emergencies either on the site or within the neighborhood of said sites sometimes is a challenge. And so Deputy Chief Barnes did some research, and he worked through a plan and presented us with a plan whereby we can infuse his CSO program with a few additional folks over the summer, and also secure the services of some retired but experienced law enforcement officials who can mentor those CSOs. And really, often the whole point someone participates in our CSO program is because they eventually want a career in law enforcement. And so to have some mentorship there and have someone with situational knowledge accompanying those folks and bringing them along when it comes to events and managing responses in large crowds, I think that makes sense. Does anyone have questions about the proposal for Chief Bliven?
Well, I hate to see him come here to a
We can-
meeting
we can-
without getting up to
We
speak.
can bring him up,
Let's
absolutely.
have him come up to
Come
speak
on up,
as well
Chief.
as anybody
There's a
else.
lot of people here that came that aren't speaking, so.
Even Ben Graham would come up too, yeah.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, Ben is more than capable as well.
welcome. So yes,
You
you want
want
to
me, I'm
just...
sorry, you just want to
Yep.
give a rundown?
Yeah,
Okay.
you want to just catch us up a little bit. Public Health and Safety had it a month ago, but this group has not. And so if you want to just,
Sure. So I think the overriding issue here is safety at our community events. And so, as we evaluate our staffing levels at some of these events, I think we're woefully understaffed at these events, especially when you consider, the balloon rally, we have 20-plus thousand people at any given day, and maybe we have a couple of police officers and half a dozen CSOs. And so, we have to do, not just staff those events, but do emergency action plans and work with emergency management to make sure that if there's a major weather event, or if there's a major criminal incident that occurs, even a major medical incident where we can get access to the people that are having that event very quickly and get them the help they need. I think that's our responsibility as a community. And so as we've evaluated the staffing levels, and like Ms. Rasmussen indicated, Deputy Chief Barnes has done research to determine what proper staffing levels are. In terms of federal guidelines and recommendations, what we've recommended here doesn't quite raise to those levels, but for our community, I think these levels of staffing are appropriate. So we've recommended a 3-tiered plan, which is one, hire additional community service officers to be able to, they're relatively inexpensive. It's a good recruitment opportunity for us to have CSOs, of course. And so we can have CSOs that are at these events that can help our sworn staff members manage the crowds, direct traffic, and respond to emergencies and incidents. So that's one piece of it. The second piece is currently our CSOs are supervised by Lieutenant Melinda Pauls. She's our, if you remember, she's our Community Resource Unit Lieutenant, and she's tasked with a lot of responsibilities throughout the police department. And so when we have those CSOs assigned to Melinda during the summer, she is really thin and doesn't have a lot of capacity to be able to do that supervision. So if we're going to increase the number of CSOs that we have, I think we need to have somebody else that is responsible for the training, the mentoring, and in oversight of the CSOs. Melinda will still be responsible for the supervision, but she'll have a couple of, with this plan, a couple of part-time officers that work during the summer report to Melinda and work directly with the CSOs on a daily basis. And then lastly, the largest cost is raising the sworn staff that are at these events. So, as you look through the recommendation, Deputy Chief Barnes put together, the largest events that we see in our community, and you'll see the number of officer hours. He has a spreadsheet that he's put together with dates and the days of each events and how many officers for the numbers of hours. And so he kind of summarized that in this document, and that's where those costs come from. Of course, last year we had an overtime grant through the state that we actually did raise our staffing levels at a lot of these events with that overtime grant, which we did not receive this year. The state cut that from us. So we don't have the ability to use that overtime grant to be able to pay for some of these staffing. And so that's kind of where we're at. Our overtime budget line, if you looked at our 2019 budget, was over budget. So we don't have police budget currently to be able to fund those positions. We do have probably some ability to use on-duty staff to be able to staff some of these events, but not nearly to the level that we should be and need to be staffing them at. Of course, summer is a busy time for us, and it is also a busy time for officers to take vacation. Contractually with the union, they're limited in the numbers of people that can take off, but we're always at the maximum number of people that are on vacation, so that creates more of an issue for us in terms of staffing levels to be able to put officers there in straight time. Some of the events, the Sheriff's Department allows us, gives us deputies that they put at these events, so that might offset some of these costs a little bit. And then, there are other events that we haven't listed on here that are smaller that I think we would be able to absorb within the current budget, like the Blues Fest and, some of those smaller events where, if there is money that if you would authorize this funding, we would probably use that at some of these other events as well. So that's kind of the rundown of the plan, and Matt's worked with the Sheriff's Department, with emergency management, with the county to try to develop some of these recommendations, and this is where we landed. So I think the policy decision that we would ask you to make is this reasonable? And if it's reasonable, where does the funding come from? Does it come from the city? Do we share that cost with some of the event organizers, which is a discussion I think we started at Public Health and Safety, or is there a mix in there somewhere? So I think that's a policy decision that's in your plate.
Right. When we started to talk about it in Public Health and Safety, one of our observations was that typically the events that we find that are the most worrisome for crowd size are events where the crowd exceeds 5,000. But there are some where the crowd exceeds 3,000 and 4,000 that, also based on either the logistical size of the event, the number of entry and exit points, the condensed environment that people are within, where you'd need to access them. In the event of an emergency, just based on the location or the venue. There are some smaller events also that could use some of this attention. And so one of the things that we had talked about was I had asked the chief and Deputy Chief Barnes to get with our finance director, talk about either departmental surplus, talk about cost savings that we could realize from our budget within other areas that we could perhaps reutilize this year for this effort as a one-time budget correction, expecting, though, that we would see a line item budget request in their 2021 budget coming forward this summer as we start to budget forward. But one thing I would like to see is us also, in parallel with this, to have a real discussion about how much of this, if not all, but part of this, could perhaps we could talk about room tax in 2021. We use a portion of the room tax that the city keeps for maintenance on the 400 block. There's, logistics that go into putting on events are an appropriate use for some of that funding. And so even if a person could not accumulate all of it from that source, if that room tax fund and the portion that the city is allowed to keep could shuttle some of those funds toward this effort, security at events is part of events too. And so I think that we'll need a well-fleshed-out plan for the 2021 budget for certain, but given the fact that we're coming up now to spring and the cusp of the 2020 event season, those concerns still exist. We are looking to have a discussion as a finance committee and some recommendations for how we could get over that hurdle for this summer in this budget year, and then we can really work on some planning in earnest going forward for the future years. Mr. Nutting, go ahead, and then Mike, or Mike and then Mr. Nutting.
Go ahead, you go first.
Okay, oh, thank you. Yeah, and I think, Lisa, you partially answered my question, but I guess, what I was interested in is these events probably don't recognize the true value of the public safety that the city provides to them, but and if they were to take on private security, it would probably be quite cost prohibitive. Has there been any kind of discussion on helping offset the costs of providing police protection during these events?
Yeah, so a lot of the events already use private security. One of the issues with private security is the quality that you receive in terms of hiring the private security. It's relatively expensive, and the quality isn't very high. So in terms of the discussions with some of the event organizers, yes, we've had those discussions, and I think, the costs that we've laid out in this plan would be cost prohibitive to a lot of these organizations. And like, I love having these events in the city. I want to continue having them in the city. I want them to be safe and properly staffed by our police department. So that's a tough thing. And that's why we're here asking you what your perspective is on this. And we can certainly ask to pass that along to the event organizers, but I think the likelihood is that that's going to be a major issue.
That might be
events.
quite a barrier to bring new and unique events to our city then, if they have to partially front the cost of what, what that burden is.
I agree. I think it would be, an impact on the current events that we have.
Yeah.
One thing that we had talked about is that a number of the events that we already have are already funding or requesting room tax for the logistics of hosting the event, as well as marketing and advertising their event to get more people in and to draw tourism to the area. And so, with a number of those already being recipients of supportive dollars, to impart those costs to them for the logistics of the event also really impacts their bottom line to the point where you would not put on either as robust an event or you would put on fewer events during the year. And I think before we've had discussion, specifically, I know we had discussion with Wausau Events because that really is, an outreach arm funded by the city in many ways. And we had talked about, what happens when you infuse costs into their bottom line is, the requests for funding are just going to get bigger. That request is just going to circle back. And so, how we handle that going forward, I think, is a discussion that we need to have. I think that one thing I had asked Deputy Chief Barnes to do on the front end was to get with the event organizers and make sure that they understand not only the need and see if they share the same concerns for event planning. A number of them do. I think that we all, you don't have to think real hard to imagine what a mass evacuation of the municipal airport looks like on Balloon Rally Saturday night. If anyone has been there and been in the middle of that crowd when it's leaving in a calm fashion, imagine if mayhem breaks out. So, the idea that you would need an elevated presence there isn't real hard to visualize. Ms. Lawrence?
Historically, what has our relationship been with the Fair Board in terms of the fair, which is a very, they're raising their own funds for those people, and it's not like a city, sponsored one?
We meet regularly with Marathon County Fair Board. We meet with them every day while the event is going on. Every morning, we go to their regular meeting and just talk about what issues there are, what to be watchful of. We have a pretty good relationship with the board.
Oh, Do we actually provide police presence on the fairgrounds patrolling, and if so, are we reimbursed historically for that?
Well, 20 years ago when I started, we had, every officer that was there on overtime, and it was reimbursed by the Fair Board. We haven't been reimbursed by the Fair Board for overtime for law enforcement presence there in a number of years now.
That presence, though, has also been reduced, right? I mean, at
Yep.
one point, nobody took off during the fair, and almost everyone on duty, it was kind of all hands on deck to keep that environment under control anyway.
Right. Yes, yeah, so
So-
we do have less officers at that event today than we did 10
Right,
or
and then
20
when
years
there
ago.
is a situation, then more respond, but they aren't just patrolling the midway anymore.
Correct, yeah.
Okay, Mr. Nutting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this budget modification request of 135, is that as needed, if, for instance, if an event is
They may not draw
canceled?
at all, if that
may not-
answers your question.
So this is
yes.
our max. If not used, it's not used.
Correct.
Thank you.
And as far as funding recommendations, Mary Ann, did you have a funding recommendation for where we would take it from?
So as you pointed out, this will have an ongoing impact. So generally, for ongoing expenses, we don't like to use one-time transfers, but,
Right.
given that we would look to revamp room tax in 2021, we did make a profit in 2019. The last, we're still wrapping up our final closing adjustments, but the last time I looked, we had about $40,000 of expenses that, so we were under budget by 40,000, but our actual, what's generating our big profit is our revenues came in substantially higher than we had budgeted. So we're predicting about a $900,000 profit in the general fund for 2019. So we could use a portion of that.
For a
to
singular
fund
correction
this.
here,
Yes.
and then-
And then in 2021, we would look to revamp room tax.
Right,
and
right, and
other
see if we could
areas
at least
for-
recover part of it from
Right.
there, so.
Would this be something, Chief, you would be putting into your budget annually?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, is there a motion from the Finance Committee then to approve this funding for events, recognizing that it would come from 2019 surplus?
So move.
Motion by Nutting, is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion or questions? Go ahead, Ms. Lawrence.
I'm stuck on the fair, so I guess, and it might be short for them, they've got everything printed and going, but I would like to see us resurrect a revenue flow somehow from the Agricultural Society of Marathon County to the City of Wausau Police Department to reimburse us for at least a part of that. I know the event occurs in our, corporate municipality, and it's our responsibility, but
I think we could certainly have a discussion with them about reenacting that plan, as we look at the 2021 fund sources. It maybe shouldn't all be room tax. Some of it could come from there,
Thank
for
you.
event specific, certainly.
Would you like me to have that conversation, or who would you like to have that conversation? I'm happy to.
I think it might mean more coming from you, just express the dire need.
Sure. And is your direction that you'd like me to contemplate, ask them to contemplate that for 2020? Or moving forward, starting in 2021?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because, it's a little short notice for them now, but
Sure.
I think as event, and the event organizers actually have been really interested in cooperating also with emergency management for incident plans, just to, I think, enhance their logistics also as event organizers to, basically figure out different scenarios ahead of time, rather than wait to see what happens. So, Mr. Nutting.
Chief, you mentioned that the Fair Board wasn't reimbursing you for overtime. Are all officers on duty there on overtime, or is it straight time?
Some are there on overtime, some are there on straight time. But they don't reimburse for any of the officer time there.
'Cause I know the Fair Board has been under financial constraints as of late.
Right, I
Recent
mean, that's
years.
been less profitable every year. I think they've been looking for ways to change it up to save some money, and so, it's certainly a discussion that could be had, though.
They should have
So-
their discussion, but I wouldn't bank on it.
Wouldn't hold out much hope? Okay, it's noted. Okay, so with a motion and a second on the floor then to approve this fund source, members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries. And then we'll look for a concerted planning effort then for the 2021 to include room tax and other sources. Okay. Item number 7 is our last item, discussion and possible action regarding a sole source request for the purchase of halophane aluminum poles and receptacles from Lighting Design Solutions Incorporated. We've got some supportive materials in our packets for that as well. From the electrical department. Does anybody have questions for the Public Works Director about these items? Looks like they've got it laid out here pretty well. Is there a motion from the Finance Committee to approve the sole source for those poles? Motion by Nutting, is there a second? Second by Martins. Further discussion or questions? Seeing none, members in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed? None are opposed, that motion carries as well. With no items remaining on our agenda, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
are we expecting that the CDBG approval is going to be on the city council agenda on the 24th then?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
yes. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Nutting, second by Lawrence. Members in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, we'll stand adjourned. Thanks, everyone. And then we'll reset, and the city council will start in this chamber at 6:30.